Hi, welcome back to the fourth video in this series looking at Albert Bandura's social cognitive theory. We're specifically looking at his description of observational learning. And within that umbrella, there are four processes: attentional processes, reproduction processes, retention processes, and today we're talking about motivation. Within motivation, we have three different types of reinforcement that Bandura discussed. So we are going to look a little more deeply at external reinforcement, vicarious reinforcement, and self reinforcement. So as a learner, I have observed somebody else doing a new skill and I am getting ready, if properly motivated, to try that new skill. So let's dive in and take a deeper look at these three types of reinforcement. So, this first component of reinforcement that supports a learner's motivation is external reinforcement. So that means anything outside of the learner that is going to be encouraging them to keep doing the thing that the teacher is trying to teach them, or that the class is trying to teach them, or that the experience is trying to teach them. It's something outside of them that is encouraging them to continue repeating or trying the new behavior. External reinforcement might look like a teacher giving a student a sticker after they have quietly sat and listened while it was time for her to be reading a story. That would be an example of external reinforcement in a classroom setting. The second type of reinforcement that Bandura talks about is vicarious reinforcement. So when you look at this picture, you see a teacher giving a student a high five for maybe completing a puzzle or a cognitive task. And you notice the other students looking at that student receiving the high five. This is a clear example of vicarious reinforcement. So the students that are watching her receive praise from the teacher are also feeling that praise even though they aren't receiving it themselves. And it would hopefully encourage them to try the same type of activity or behavior that the student received that reinforcement for. So that's what vicarious reinforcement would look like in a classroom setting, and would be hopefully encouraging our students in an observational learning environment to start participating or being motivated enough to try the activity out themselves. The third type of reinforcement that we're going to look at is self reinforcement. So, that is where you, as the learner, are reinforcing your own behavior, motivating your own behavior and your own self and your own learning. And that leads into Bandura's conversations around self efficacy, where the learner is taking responsibility for their work, for their effort, for their learning. That will be something to discuss in another series, but this idea of self reinforcement is heading us down that path with Bandura. So, what self reinforcement might look like for a learner would be, okay, I've got this giant project due, and I am going to commit myself. My goal is going to be I'm going to spend 30 minutes every day chipping away at it slowly. And if I meet that goal on Friday, I'm going to go get myself one of my favorite coffees from a coffee shop. So I've set a goal for myself and provided myself a reward to reinforce myself for meeting that goal. So that would be what self reinforcement would look like in a learning environment. Thank you for joining me in this four-part series on social cognitive theory. Just as I've done in the other three videos, if motivation is the motivational process is of interest to you, I am including a couple fun links in the description where you can kind of dive a little bit deeper. I've included a motivation quiz where you could learn a little bit more about yourself as a learner and also use as a facilitator in a learning environment to understand a little bit more about your learners. I'm also including a link to information about John Keller's ARCS model of motivation, which would be a great next step for you if this is something that you're interested in as a learner or researcher. Enjoy.